One of the defining events in world history is the adoption of Christianity as the state religion of the Roman Empire. A major turning point is often attributed to the Edict of Milan, issued in 313 by Emperor Constantine, which officially recognized Christianity. It is widely regarded as the cause of Christianity's triumph, but is that really the case? Indeed, some estimates show that the proportion of Christian population in the empire was less than 10% at that time. However, Christianity was growing at the rate of around 40% per decade before the Edict of Milan. Also, Christianity provided a strong sense of belonging with its followers, so Christian communities were highly organized and influential. On the other hand, traditional Roman polytheism didn't bring strong commitment of the followers, attachments between them, and loyalties to the community. Constantine could not disregard the capacity to mobilize human resources and political influence of the Christian churches. He also found Christianity useful to justify the legitimacy and sanctity of the emperors. It was not that Christianity rose because of Constantine. Christianity was already so influential that he had no choice but to officially approve it. Why did one of countless cults become dominant in the Roman Empire? What can we learn about human society through the rise of Christianity? Early Christianity was a cult movement derived from Judaism, and the initial spread is thought to have occurred among the Hellenized Jews of the diaspora, Jewish people living in the Roman Empire, who were integrated into Greek-Roman culture. They greatly outnumbered the Jews living in Palestine, and the majority of them lived in the eastern part of the empire. They had a demand for a new religion. Many Hellenized Jews had embraced some elements of Roman polytheism and cultural views of Roman society. Also, the law of Judaism sometimes prevented them from participating in Roman civic life. Yet, it was difficult to fully abandon their Jewish culture. The receptivity of most people for wholly new things is small. Generally speaking, people are more willing to adopt a new religion, to the extent that it retains cultural continuity with conventional religions, with which they are already familiar. In the modern era, movements like Mormonism and the Unification Church have gained many followers, not by being entirely new religions, but by building upon the context of traditional Christianity, to which people were already accustomed. Hellenized Jews in the empire wanted to blend in the Roman culture, while maintaining their religious context of Judaism. Christianity effectively satisfied such a religious demand. It is estimated that there were 1 million Christians in the empire in 250 AD, and only 1 out of every 5 Jews of the diaspora need to have converted to meet that number. By appealing to diaspora Jews, Christianity gained its initial substantial number of followers. Moreover, Christianity acquired universality that is free from Jewish ethnicity, while retaining the exclusive elements of monotheism. This gave rise to a religion that was open to everyone, yet maintained strong communal identity and organizational strength. Around 100 AD, the Roman Empire reached its largest territorial expansion, dominating the entire Mediterranean world. As the empire grew, traditional Roman polytheism couldn't satisfy the religious needs of the vast state. There is a historical tendency that as society becomes older, larger, and more cosmopolitan, people will demand fewer universal gods of greater scope. Roman polytheism had incorporated regional deities of each conquest. This had been one of the biggest advantages that supported the tolerance of Roman society, but eventually there were more gods than people could remember, gradually losing its attraction and influence. On the other hand, Christians were convinced that the very same God was worshipped in the same way at every church across the empire. Even more importantly, they could expect that wherever they went, there would be fellows who worshipped the same God and welcomed them as members of the community. Christian communities particularly appealed to people who could not belong to land-based or ethnicity-based groups. Such strong cohesion and attachment among Christians were the biggest advantages over the traditional polytheism. traditional deities only ask for a one-on-one relationship between a god and the believer, a person who sacrifices their time and resources, and the God who benefits them in response. On the other hand, Christian God also defines the relationship between his believers. God loves people, so you have to love and save your neighbors who are loved by God, and they have to love and save you who is loved by God. This logic was unique to Christianity. As the empire expanded, people came and went between cities, and members became diverse, but Christian communities were open to everyone, regardless of ethnicity, wealth, and birthplace. Being a Christian might have been more attractive, comfortable, and safer than being a Roman citizen. In March 180, Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the last of the 5 good emperors, passed away, which marked the sunset of peace and prosperity of the Roman Empire, known as the Pax Romana. Under his reign, disasters were frequent, epidemics were rampant, and borders were threatened. With the death of Marcus Aurelius, who had been diligently addressing such crises, the empire plunged into an era of turmoil. Low fertility had been a serious problem since the 1st century, and the plague, which claimed the lives of 1/4 to 1/3 of the population, made the situation even worse. Public order and social bonds had changed, due to a constant influx of barbarian settlers to make up for the population decrease. The throne was sought with violence and the government became unstable. The devaluation of currency and resulting inflation put many people in poverty. Meanwhile, Christianity was propelled by these crises. Frequently in human history, crises and disasters have caused transitions of faith, especially when the traditional religion fails to provide satisfactory explanation of why the disaster occurred, a guiding principle of actions against the crises, and healing to their grief. Epidemics in particular revealed notable contrasts between the traditional religion and Christianity. While priests of Roman polytheism were struggling to deal with the epidemic, Christianity told that those who care, sympathize, and support their neighbors even in difficulties, would be rewarded eternal peace in heaven. In other words, Christianity gave meaning to the calamity and guidance for action. As Roman citizens abandoned the cities, Christians remained, dedicating themselves to caring for the sick. Moreover, such norms and mutual support resulted in substantially higher rates of survival among Christians. This meant that in the aftermath of each epidemic, Christians made up a larger percentage of the population even without new converts. Moreover, their better survival rate would have seemed a miracle of God. The same was true for the influx of immigrants and economic distress. To cities filled with newcomers and strangers, Christianity offered a basis for attachment and shared norms. To cities filled with homeless and impoverished, Christianity offered charity, as well as hope that all people are equal before God. All of these made Christianity more appealing, when people were gradually disillusioned with the traditional deities. One of the profound characteristics of Christianity was that it required higher costs and more severe restrictions from its believers than the traditional polytheism. First of all, Christians had to live a peculiar lifestyle, and invest a lot of time on regular weekly worship. Generally, high costs make a service or a product less attractive, but religions may not be the case. Firstly, costly demands mitigate freerider problems. High costs screen out potential members whose commitment and participation would be low. Also, high costs tend to increase participation among those who do join, driven by the sunk cost fallacy. Moreover, the more each member pays, the higher levels of benefits they gain collectively. For example, the more fellows join the songs and prayers, and the more enthusiastically they participate, the greater the satisfaction each participant can experience. Another cost of being a Christian is that it requires exclusive commitment. Christians are not allowed to worship other deities and belong to other religious communities simultaneously. This often triggered persecution, but it fostered a strong sense of solidarity in reverse. Thus, the high participation costs made Christian communities attractive and cohesive, which brought its great capacity to mobilize human resources and political influence. The Roman Empire was fundamentally a collection of city-states and provinces. The city of Rome had relations with other cities and regions individually. The essence of Roman governance ultimately depended on whether it could maintain loyalty and support from the ruling class in each region. With the expansion of Christianity, churches and bishops in each city earned power to organize and mobilize a large number of citizens. Constantine's favorable approach to Christianity is due to its growing influence, which he could not ignore to stabilize his rule. Backed by his official approval in 313, Christian population further increased, surpassing the majority by the time of Emperor Theodosius in the late 4th century. Christians, once persecuted, had now turned the tables, sometimes attacking pagans and destroying their temples. In short, Christianity had a lot of characteristics to match Roman society and its religious needs. Leveraging the expansive network of the Roman Empire, Christianity spread widely and deeply, and profoundly impacted the course of human history.